Hey everyone, Ben here. Thanks for tuning in into today's episode of the Stellar Work podcast. I'm having Steffen Stammel with me. Steffen is Global IT Strategy Director at Bayer. And if you know Bayer, you know that they're going through rough times at the moment. We're covering different topics from how it all started to how the transformation is going and what the different measures are they're taking in transforming Bayer to another level. All right, let's start. Disclaimer. The views and opinions shared by Steffen are based on his personal reflections and experiences. He is not representing the company's stance or policies.
Don't you worry, no, don't you fret. I got a plan and I give it up yet. We're breaking free, busting bureaucracy. Step by step, we're finding our harmony.
Hey Steffen, welcome to the podcast.
Hi Ben, thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I know you're in a very difficult time because you work at Bayer at the moment and they're going through a rough transition. So I'm really happy that you made it on the show. So welcome.
Yeah, thank you again so much for having me. But I think you're as well going through a large transformation. So please, allow me to reveal this. Congratulations, you're a first-time father. How do you feel? How are the nights? How is everything? How is wife? How are kids?
So everything's super chill at the moment. So the first week was kind of rough. You probably see it on my face. Everyone watching will notice. Everyone listening, go and watch the show. It's a video podcast. But I'm a little bit exhausted. I'm a little bit tired. But it's actually only a little bit. After the first rough week, we sort of grooved in and sort of found our rhythm. And I feel that is the most important part to it. So now we split up the nights. My wife is doing the second shift. I'm doing the first shift. So each one of us gets around 6 hours of sleep, which is pristine and about 4 hours more than I expected. That is actually pretty good. But the first week, oh boy, that was rough.
I feel you and I hear you, and I have to admit I'm a bit envious. 6 hours of sleep is even more than I get every now and then. But this really feels like you found already a system on how you can operate. And then we are in the topic of transformation, because you know what? Maybe the system is working right now, but rest assured this is going to change every now and then, and more frequently that you probably want this to be changed.
100%. But let's not go too deep into that and move on to the topic that everyone is curious about and the reason why everyone jumped on this show. You're working at Bayer. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure, yeah, gladly. And maybe for anyone who doesn't know, two sentences to what is Bayer. Bayer is one of the leading life science companies in the world, operating three businesses. One is pharmaceuticals, so serving patients. One is agriculture, so serving farmers. And then the third division is consumer health, serving consumers. These are the three divisions that we have. Currently around 100,000 employees. And I'm part of the IT organization, and the role is the Global Strategy Director. Typically, let's say in a normal life, without any transformation, without any special projects, I would be responsible for the IT strategy, to design it, to enhance it, to continuously shape it up. And then, of course, as well, keeping track of where we are, refining, etc. Now, what you just mentioned, Bayer is part of is undergoing a large transformation, which I'm super passionate about. And I would say 80% of the time that I dedicated work at present moves into co-creating this transformation. So changing our operating model, changing the way that we work, driving the change into our organization, but as well figuring out how to actually get this done.
I was picking it up from the news because I saw that 2016, I guess, it was around that time when Bayer acquired Monsanto. Bayer at the time had a market cap roughly over 80 billion. Monsanto was around 60 million. Right now, Bayer went south to around 30 billion. Was that the reason that kickstarted that transformation?
Yeah, ouch. I as well am proud shareholder. that hurt.
I know. Sorry.
It's It's maybe one. It's not the only reason. So,
Okay.
as always in life, it's a combination of things, a bundle of reasons that ultimately leads to, then the need for transformation. Combining, I would say probably there are 4 major themes which made it so important now for Bayer to change as a company. One is related to what you just mentioned, so the acquisition of Monsanto. Monsanto has a product called Roundup. The active ingredient is called glyphosate. And then after the acquisition, a number of lawsuits happened in the US, particularly around this product. If I say a lot, we're talking about more than 150,000 lawsuits. Now there are
Whoa.
settlement agreements to 100K. Yeah, exactly. It's an incredible number. Lucky for anyone who is working as a lawyer. It's a safe job at present. But we still have, let's say, around 50,000 lawsuits are open. And this is a continuous back and forth. There is no final solution to it. There are a lot of attempts to actually find a way to resolve this problem. But this is, let's say, one problem. Because obviously, associated with every lawsuit, there's sometimes settlement payments, etc. So that's one. The second piece is because this is one business unit and one big, large associated problem. The other one is around pharmaceuticals. So for anyone who's not that familiar with, let's say, the pharma business, typically what you do research and trials for 10 years until you get a new innovative product to the market. Then you can harness, let's say, the fruits for 10 years where you have a patent and you're kind of safe from any competitors. After these 10 years, we name it the patent cliff. Generic products can enter the market and then prices drop and you don't make so much money out of it anymore. So what happened within Bayer is the one blockbuster of Bayer is experienced patent cliff just now. And the most promising candidate out of the research pipeline failed at a very, very late stage in the R&D pipeline. So, of course, this is nothing that we can plan for. This happens. This is research. We're trying to cure some of the most dangerous and trickiest disease of the world. So that might happen. But I don't remember exactly the right amount, but I think the stock market price dropped by almost 15% the day we had to give out this notice that the late stage trial failed.
I
So in
vividly remember that I was writing you the iMessage and was like, what is going on? And I vividly remember texting you and giving you the screenshot of the stock price. I was like, oh my God, what just happened?
Yeah, I remember this day as well. At this time as well, I was thinking, oh wow, this is going to become a big problem for us because a pipeline, you don't just build it up overnight. But that's the second problem. Then the third one is one that is not, I would say, exclusively relevant for Bayer, but most large-scale organizations, they've been invented decades ago. So Bayer has a history of 160 years and built up in a very hierarchical system. A system that is designed for efficiency and scale. However, in modern times where we do live right now, it's, of course, yes, about efficiency, but it's more about being able to rapidly respond to changed market dynamics. It's being able to continuously iterate, to be a learning organization, to cope with all the change that is happening in our world. And the changes are coming at a more frequent basis. The sequence is just going up. So the result of this, let's say, rather older organization setup is that we are a bit slow. We are facing things like bureaucracy. We're spending a lot of time serving rather the system to continue to maintain it as it is right now instead of serving the customers. And so this is the third problem that we are trying to tackle with the transformation. The fourth one is closing the loop to the first one in regards to the Monsanto acquisition. So the acquisition wasn't for free. So Bayer at this time, we had a lot of cash available, but of course we accumulated debt. So now stock prices, market capitalization shrink down, but we still have the debt and interest rates increases. So the fourth reason of why we are where we are is that there's a quite high debt level which we have to get rid of. And so those four things together, glyphosate litigation, the pipeline in pharma, fighting bureaucracy, and debt, is the reason of why there's a high need and an appetite for change within Bayer.
Got it. And therefore, you also got a new CEO. As I noticed, Bill Anderson joined from Roche. Is that the correct pronunciation?
I think so. So I as well always say Roche, Switzerland-based, a huge pharmaceutical company. And yes, Bill Anderson joined a year ago. And I think we're all super excited about having him.
Yeah, I can see. I was doing a little bit research for the episode, and I found out that at Roche, Bill Anderson also led their transformation, and he is not quite the usual management type of guy that you would expect in such a corporation. Like when everybody is wearing suits, he would just show up in a shirt and a jacket. Like, and even during his 4 years at Roche, he didn't change that. He didn't went in line to fit into the corporate world. He was sort of like standing out by how he looks, how he behaves, and I wonder, how does that work? Maybe you had a couple occasions where you met him. How does that work at Bayer when you bring someone in with such a different, non-corporate, let's say, pragmatic attitude, maybe?
Yeah, it's a good question. And yeah, I share your observations. You hardly see him dressed up in suits. As a fun fact, last week when I was in the office, I was building into our headquarters. He came out wearing his headphones, listening to a podcast, and just casually sneaking by, saying hi. So he's super approachable. So I was really surprised. Maybe why this is standing out a bit is as well his predecessor, Werner Baumann. He was the corporate guy within Bayer. So he started at Bayer and he finished his career at Bayer.
And he was also responsible for the Monsanto acquisition, right? That was his leading part.
Yes, it was his leading part. And that's what I would say, kudos to the narrative and the strategic intent behind, because the rationale behind has been the world population is growing, but land is going to become scarcer and scarcer. So how do you want to feed the world if there's less land available for more people? So of course, if you invest into agriculture in order to gain more out of less, then this seems to be a quite sustainable and future promising business. So that was the rationale of why. Yeah,
if you can make it to that future, because that is a very long shot. That is not something that would pay off within the next 2 years. It's not like this is going to happen overnight, right? So whenever something in the nearer future is going to appear, like a war in the eastern parts of Europe, or COVID crisis, or different interest rates, that is really affecting that long shot.
You're right. Absolutely. So where I wanted to lead to is, I understand the rationale behind. Now in hindsight, like 4 years later, we're all a bit smarter. It looks that the true value hasn't unfolded yet. So we can't see yet that now 1 + 1 = 4. This hasn't really unfolded yet. But I understand, I think the move was smart at this point in time where the industry was consolidating. In hindsight, yeah, we all struggle a bit to see now how this will truly unfold, but future will tell us. But getting back to Bill Anderson, so yeah, he looks differently, he talks differently. So this might be because, it's just like a different kind of personality, as well. And if you distinguish, or if you compare typical stereotype German person with a typical stereotype American person, there's a bit more storytelling and authenticity in the way how he acts. So this is really refreshing. But as well, he was bringing, and he is still bringing, a lot of disruptive thought-provoking ideas, which and this is now maybe a personal statement, I find them very inspirational. So for me, this is great to hear, refreshing, and I really enjoy working towards the vision that he outlined. But it's as well quite disturbing for, let's say, the normal corporate life that most people are used to.
I can imagine one of his main parts is, if I got him correctly, is getting rid of unnecessary bureaucracy. And he's bringing a model in that everyone's talking about in order to do that, which is dynamic shared ownership. Could you tell us a little bit about what that is?
Yeah, gladly. And there maybe, I think dynamic shared ownership is a Bayer invented term, so it's not like an industry terminology. But what does it actually mean? And this comes back to, again, two different kinds of organizational setups. One is rather the hierarchical layout, and the other one, though, is almost like a twisted pyramid. You turn the hierarchy upside down, because what you want is you want those who are closest to the customers, those who are truly delivering value to our customers, that they are able to take decisions. And how can you actually get there? This is only possible through a changed operating model, which we call dynamic shared ownership. So in essence, what do we hope to get out of it? In essence, there are three large themes around it. The first one is around speed to market. So getting faster by as well busting bureaucracy. Let's just imagine less approval layers will lead to just an increase in how we can get things done.
Yeah, so that is tackling one of the three things that you mentioned, which is probably the pipeline you're talking about. You get more stuff faster through that pipeline. Is that where you're going with this?
Exactly. So we are going to get the innovation faster through the pipeline and to the market, into the hands of patients or consumers or farmers. But hopefully as well, we are going to discover more innovation moving forward. So it has both facets. So we want to drive and push an organization focused around innovation and speed to market, rather than focused about efficiency. So that's one pillar, like innovation and speed to market. Another pillar is around, let's say, people. Like I am as part of Team Bayer. How can you ensure that you get? How can you develop a system that fosters an inclusive and fulfilling environment, a great place to work, where you can be productive, where you can bring your full self to work? And we believe that this is possible by empowering the teams so that you have more autonomy in what you do. So instead of, and I want to exaggerate a bit, instead of being micromanaged, that someone is checking every email I'm writing, we want to move to a situation where I can take budget decisions on my own, independent of my hierarchical position in the organization, of course, within a certain frame.
And I assume that goes both ways, right? So on the one side, people who get micromanaged now won't get micromanaged and will be more self-responsible for their work and for the decisions they make. And on the other hand, people who are micromanaging will probably stop micromanaging and really get their hands on the work and contribute value, which, at least on my philosophic view, is more fulfilling and more satisfying in your job than micromanaging others.
Yeah, you're right. And again, as well, just to online, not every manager within Bayer is a micromanager. So, but
course,
just to have this black and white comparison, there was a study and research conducted by Gary Hamel, and who wrote the book of Humanocracy.
That was the book the DSO, the Dynamic Shared Ownership, is based upon, right?
Exactly. It's kind of the Bible that Bill Anderson and then now our chief catalyst, Mike Lehrer, brought to Bayer, where some of the principles are being described. And it said, like, in this classical hierarchical organizations, managers spend between 40 to 50% of the work on really administrative tasks. So this can be budget approval, travel invoices, PMO activities, etc., etc. And these activities rather serve the system of control and reporting, hitting certain KPIs. But at the end of the day, our customers don't care whether I'm meeting my budget. They care about getting the product into their hands as early as possible. And this is where we want to head towards. So our managers, first of all, I think a high number of them are really happy to get rid of those tasks because you know what? They are a burden. It's not fun. It's just like it's admin. It's monkey work. It's not like fulfilling. So they're happy about getting rid of it. But then, of course, what we want to have is to change, let's say, the mindset and as well the principle of leadership. So more towards being a servant leader, more towards, we have an abbreviation, like all corporates have, I would say the abbreviation disease, it's called VAC. It's visionary, architect, catalyst, and coach. So you're bringing the vision, like where do we want to head towards? You're a catalyst, so therefore you facilitate as well change. You coach, you help the team to take better decisions. You're not taking decisions on behalf, but you coach them. And then architect is you design a system where everybody can thrive. And this is where we want management to move towards, instead of focusing onto what I just brought up, approving travel invoices or expense reports or absences and you name it.
I mean, this all sounds super great, right? It sounds all butterflies and cozy sunshine, but actually this is like also probably about reducing workforce and cutting operational expenses, because everything that you mentioned by now is not necessarily tackling the debt issue, which is one of the things that you mentioned earlier in this episode.
Yeah, you're right. And is this all butterflies? No, it is not. And like what happens on the inside of every employee? So if you imagine the Maslow pyramid, where the bottom line is really its food, health, existence, it's job security. And top of mind of most people are, am I going to have a job in the future? Am I still good enough to survive in such a new setup? Because let's face it, like most of our teams, I as well, we lived in this operating model for a number of years. So we are trained to as well navigate this operating model. Now all of a sudden we have to change, and some are, let's say, quick learners, and others struggle to do this in a faster way. But to your question, is this going to reduce the depth? I think the important part is this is not it's not the reason why. It's not a leading indicator, it's a lagging one. Typically transformations start with you get a financial goal that you have to hit, and then you work backwards on how to actually hit this goal. And one of the measures is, you know, right from the beginning, you have to take out this and that number of employees or workforce capacity, and then you will be able to reach the target. But then the whole narrative is about cost cutting. The whole narrative is about reducing something. But for us, we want to change this. We say, like, if we become faster, if we are more innovative, if people can really strive, then we will have products faster to the market. We will have more growth. And with more growth, we are going to reduce depth. It's a different narrative. It sounds small, but it is a difference, because no, we are not stupid. Everybody in the organization knows what it means to achieve savings. But if with this very strong purpose and inspiring narrative, we're all committed to actually make this happen. And yes, there will be cost savings associated with it, but it's not the first reason why. It's something that is going to happen in parallel, because we're trying to optimize for both top line and bottom line. And the beauty about it is, I think everybody will agree that if you have a number of roles which just have been built up over decades to support a hierarchical system, it makes sense to just, get rid of those roles and invest rather into more value generating positions that, as well, at the end of the day, are more fulfilling for those who are executing against them.
Mhm. So you have the narrative, you have the vision, you have your goals that you want to achieve as an organization. But how do you actually start doing that? Like, what are the first steps that you take when going into this direction?
Yeah, there are a number of steps. So where to start? So, I mean, Bayer is a company with 100,000 employees. So where to start? So one thing is clear, and this as well, we learned it the hard way. You can just hire some consultants and in a very secret, dark room, draw the future. And then there is one day where we reveal everything, and then you just start. So we
It's
learned that
like
this
the Twitter approach. There's just one day a weird guy walks into the head office carrying a sink, right? And then everybody is just locked out of the building and know, hey, I'm unemployed by now. So that's not what's going to happen. So what does?
Yeah, we want to avoid this. I hope that we won't see Bill running around with a sink in his hands. So a number of things happen. First, like, he created the sense of urgency and as well the appetite for the transformation. So what he did is, of course, he shared in town halls differently and his idea, his vision to get buy-in. But of course, when a new CIO is coming and is sharing such a vision, of course, some anxiety is being created, almost FOMO, fear of missing out. Like, hey, there's something happening. For sure, it is going to happen. How can I become part of it? And so what happened is there were so-called frontline teams, front-runner teams have been designed, 100. So, and these smaller teams, they were built to learn and to experiment in a new setup, were built to, of course, hopefully create success stories, and were built in very separate teams to get buy-in in the organization. And in parallel, at this time, I would say this may be a weak spot in our transformation, the most senior leaders were trained as well in the new model. And the feedback that we always got is, and I was as well one of them who said, hey, why are now all the senior leaders being trained? Isn't this a bottom-up transformation? Why am I not heard? Why can I not contribute? This is, let's say, the old system again, just with a new fancy name. But that wasn't the case. It was just the starting point. You need to start somewhere. And if you want to bridge the two worlds, an old hierarchical system focused on titles and leadership towards the more self-empowered autonomous teams, you still need the senior leaders to get there. So, and then we had a combination of training people, upskilling, and real-life pilots which were running, always in 90 days. So 1 quarter. This is now, let's say, our time stem, our sprint rhythm, if you want to call it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And this is how we started. A third dimension was, despite training and frontrunners, we had so-called practitioners. You might call them agile coaches, would be maybe a good description, but they were kind of the enthusiasts, the evangelists, the experts on DSO. And DSO, again, comprise a number of principles that are important. Agile ways of working is only one of them. Mindset and leadership are others. And the idea was that this group of practitioners can act as multipliers moving forward. That we'll have in the future, every team will have a DSO coach that can help facilitate the change process from old to new ways of working. So this was the starting point. But now probably you'd say, well, you have 100 front-runner teams. Well, you're 100,000 employees. Isn't there like a small gap? And that's right. But this was back last year when Bill Anderson started. We're right now at roughly 1,000 to 2,000 teams. And the ultimate goal is that 4,000 micro enterprises is how we would name them. Teams are running this way. So this is really an exponential growth. And what we can see is due to the fact that there's a bit of positive FOMO, people are eager to flip into this operating model because it's part of the future. It's part of the shiny, bright, new way of working that everybody wants to be a part of.
When you say, you said micro business cells, or how did you call that?
Micro enterprises. So the idea is almost like, it's maybe a good label, but the idea is, in a perfect world, almost theoretical world, is we call it freedom in the frame. You have the autonomy and the decision right to operate almost like an entrepreneur. You, Ben, would own one certain product, and you can attract the right talent, the right resource that you need to be successful. And within this frame, within this, let's say, your little environment, you can do whatever is needed. And this is why it's an entrepreneurial way of thinking. This is why we've called it micro enterprise, to foster this idea of accountability.
Now you made me really curious. What will happen if one of the micro enterprises would fail? So I assume that some of them will probably, right? Like any other enterprise that fails. But I wonder how this looks on a structural level, because they're still employed, right? It's not like, oh, it's a very different business entity, and when that goes bankrupt, you just rewrite the money and the people are being laid off. It's sort of different because it's still integrated in that system, even though it's decoupled.
Yeah, a number of topics to that, and maybe the first one, even though it's part of the corporate, I wanted to say bullshit bingo, but I will say like part of the communication pattern. There are no failures; there are only learning opportunities. And what we strive to optimize for is, and this is what we are striving for. We want to become faster learners. We need to learn fast. And yes, failure is part of this journey. And so if a micro enterprise has started, probably there was a very good intent and a broad buy-in where everybody agreed upon, hey, this makes sense to chase this certain idea. No, let's say for
kind of a funding round that you do when you bring up such a micro enterprise.
Yeah, the idea is that there isn't the one leader who is going to distribute funds to his or her teams. It's rather that the different micro enterprises, they discuss with each other and negotiate which idea is the best. Now let's take a specific example. Let's assume you live in Israel and you want to bring a new product to the market, and you get the funds and the people, and you want to have your go-to-market strategy. And 1 month later, the war starts. So nobody planned for it. So what happens? You don't dissolve, let's say, the whole team and lay off people. Well, we still have other priorities which maybe are more important. Maybe there's initiative, how can we support people on the ground there? Maybe as well some charity, maybe some fundraising whatsoever. Then the idea is that the talents are able to apply on a talent marketplace for other roles where they can bring their full self to work and hopefully move the needle. So this is as well, it's different compared to before. Before, you have a manager and your career depends on your manager to a large extent. So whatever kind of visibility you get, whatever kind of training you get, whatever kind of networking opportunities you get. The idea is if let's say we really believe and foster this mindset of autonomy, is that you can take care of your career on your own, and you are unable to do so. And one of those measures is that you can apply for roles that are interesting, where you think you can really move the needle and have impact. So let's assume we have to dissolve this team. Then whoever was working on this team has the opportunity to just look for another job. They don't get a letter of notice immediately. For sure not. It's rather finding other work that needs to be done. And I'm pretty much convinced there's always more work than actually hands on deck.
Yeah, I think so as well. I'm wondering, like, what the timeline is on that transformation or that evolution, because it to me it at least feels more of an evolutionary approach. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to be a big rollout and we're done. When do we see on the number side of things? When will we see results of that approach?
That's a good question, and I think there are two ways to answer it, because there are visible changes and invisible changes. So, for example, the size of our company in terms of FTE, or the layers of hierarchy that we have, or the span of control, this you will see towards end of this year, and this will probably be executed against. So you'll see the new organization. This is very visible. But of course, just because you see this in the org chart doesn't mean that the change process, the transformation, happened already in the heads and hearts of our people.
Of course.
And some studies showed that this can take up to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
So the intent is that by 2026, everybody is working in this new environment and is able to thrive as well in this working environment. Just the changes to the organization, this you can see by beginning of next year to mid of next year, this will be done. But this is going to be not a marathon, but for sure a longer journey, because it's a fundamental change in how we are working. And this is not going to happen overnight. And for sure, we are not perfect. Nobody is perfect. We'll have other iterations. This is now in agile lingo MVP 1. We have our MVP launch now, January 1st. And then probably a few months in, or a few sprint cycles in, we are going to reiterate and refine, because probably on the one, there will be angles where we maybe reduce leadership by too much. Others, there's maybe not enough.
Mm.
We have to learn a bit. But this is part of, again, the mindset that we want to foster. It's about really learning agility. This is where we need to get towards to thrive in a dynamic, changing world.
No, you really made me curious on the span of hierarchical layers. Let's just assume you had in the old system, you had like 100 hierarchical layers. How many do you think will you have 2026 out of that 100, that just percentage number that I came up with?
Yeah, now we have to distinguish that there are two KPIs. One is the span of control. So how many direct reports has a manager? In the past, it used to be something between 6 to 12. And we had the problem that sometimes there were a lot of micro teams where one manager was overseeing 2 persons, because it was the only way to make a career. So, how insane this is. So once, let's say, the span of control. And the other is the layers of leadership. So if Bill Anderson is, let's say, layer 0, then how many layers I need until you're at the factory floor? And we've been at 14. So between the CEO and the factory floor, 14 layers, which is a long, long, long way. And you have to imagine all the approvals in between, the communication steps. So the vision is that the span of control, we rebranded towards span of coaching, becomes more something towards 15 to 30. And the layers of leadership move from 14 to something between 6 to 8. And that's not bad. This it's well, not bad. I don't know. Like we'll learn about this. But
No, I
this
mean
will be
it's
effective very
ambitious. It sounds ambitious.
It's a bold vision.
Mhm.
I like the term big, hairy, scary goals, but feasible.
What is a hairy goal? A hairy goal is something that keeps me away from making it kids friendly on YouTube with this show. What is a hairy goal?
Yeah, you have this always like this thing it's almost scary. You're like, wow, this is a big goal. Is this really possible? And you have to stretch yourself a lot to get there, but you think with some luck maybe it is possible. And I think this is as well the mindset, the attitude that we have to bring to work. So we should try to grab, let's say, for the almost unrealistic, knowing
Okay.
that maybe eventually we'll end up maybe a bit behind, but still quite far. And yeah, when is this going to be realistic? Coming back to what I just said, like the visible and the invisible changes, like the visible change you'll see in the next 6 months. But when this is really paying into the strategic goals of world-leading innovation, faster time to market, happy, fulfilled, productive people, reducing
Stock
debt,
price.
stock price, yeah, this will take some time.
We're slowly but surely getting to the end of the episode, and I really appreciate you taking your time. And I assume it's kind of stressful to be in that position in that huge corporation, moving through that transition. I was wondering how, like, we talked a bunch about how this change affects people, how it's affecting them personally. And I wonder how you're doing. Like, what is your strategy to like stay sane in that whirlwind of change that is going through Bayer?
Oh, yeah, it's a good question. And yeah, it is stressful. So no sugarcoating here. It is stressful. I as well asked myself the question, am I going to have a job? Do I want to have a job in the system moving forward? Do I believe in the journey that Bayer is going through? And for me, there were probably 3 things that helped me through this path. So number 1 was I tried to decouple my own happiness level from the stock price performance of Bayer. I am not Bayer.
Sounds pretty
Unfortunately,
healthy.
I realized even if I work a full night, it at the end of the day, it doesn't have an impact on the stock price. So I'm more than the role I do have within Bayer. I still am a worthy person and I am employable without Bayer. And sometimes we tend to forget this. But this is a process well to understand that we do have that we do have the freedom to decide. The second one is I try to be very rigorous about my own, let's say, healthy routines. Sleep, movement, nutrition. I try to really have a balance. I do have, like many other people, I do have a blocker in my calendars for lunch break, and I do have a calendar for maybe getting stuff done in emails. And these are the ones that typically are being deprioritized first when things get hectic. I try to avoid this. Doesn't always work, but I try to avoid this. And the third one is I try moving meetings. So whenever possible, and I don't have to write down things or I do have to share my screen, I try to walk. There are so many studies that will explain to you that how efficient it is and how healthy it is to walk and to move during the day, and how helpful this is going to be for your capacity as well to think. Those are my 3 things. So summarizing, decoupling my own personal value from the value of Bayer. The second is sticking to healthy routines. And the third one is getting in some movement or moving meetings. This is what I try. But hey, let's be honest, I'm as well on a journey. Sometimes I'm as well the guy who is having a burger on the highway on my way back home from work, and I finish the day with a Netflix. This happens. But I try to have the awareness that this should not be the business as usual.
Yeah. I think we're in the same boat here. I'm also like struggling to get my healthy routine with having the baby at the moment. But at least like something that I take for myself is that 20-minute run, just a 20-minute run, just to get things off my mind. And we really try to make that space for me and my wife at the moment. But I wouldn't call that a routine by now. I think that will take a couple of weeks, a month, and maybe years. Who knows? Who really knows? Maybe it's a constant adjustment.
My recommendation there is be generous with yourself. It doesn't need to be a run. It can be a walk. I think this is as well maybe a fourth dimension is let's be generous with ourselves. Sometimes we are our own strongest critics, but we should be our own strongest supporters.
Yeah, that is really well said. We came to the end of the episode. So first of all, thank you so much for jumping on this show with me. Thank you so much for sharing all the insights. Anything that you would like to share with our listeners out there?
Anything that I would like to, so outside of keep listening to the cool Stellar podcast and support Ben in his journey, what I would like to call out is find your sweet spot of happiness and the work that is really purposeful for you. Even in large-scale corporations, there are always smaller islands of happiness. Bayer is not just one Bayer, one company. There are a lot of subcultures. And within each and every company, try to find your niche where you feel at home. And once you feel at home, you'll be successful in whatever you do.
If people want to learn more about you, if people want to reach out to you, where do people find you?
Find me on LinkedIn. So that's the best way. I try to as well share there a bit of my learnings, and this is what I do. So follow me on LinkedIn. That will be nice for me, nice for you, and this is where you can get as well a hold of me.
Right. Thanks again. Thank you very much for being here. We already talked about the song, which is going to be a reggae song. So thank you also very much for contributing the second reggae song on this show. To every listener out there, thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. Steffen, see you soon, and thanks for being here.
Thank you, Ben. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Thanks for making it to the very end of this episode. I hope you could learn something out of the conversation I had with Steffen. For me, it was really inspiring to see how Bayer, such a huge corporation within Europe and within the whole world, is transforming its organization and leadership style. If you want to learn more about what Bayer does and what Steffen does, make sure to follow Steffen on LinkedIn. Reach out, say hi, say you tuned in to the podcast, and until next time, bye-bye.
Don't you worry, no, don't you fret. I got a plan and I give it up yet. We're breaking free, busting bureaucracy. Step by step, we're finding our harmony. Stepping clean down from Bayer town. You're shaking it up, turning it around. No more aligning too long. We're bringing in trust, now we're moving strong. We got new ideas, we got new ways. Chopping off the weight, no more delays. Built from Roche says let's turn it upside down. Flip that pyramid and lose that frown. Don't you worry, no, don't you fret. Bayer's got a plan, we'll not give it up yet. We're breaking free, busting bureaucracy. Step by step, we're finding our harmony. From the fields of crops to the pharmacy shelves. No more heavy layers, we're being ourselves. Bill's in his t-shirt, shaking up the suits. Working together, growing new roots. It's not just cutting, it's clearing the space for people to shine and find their own place. From 10-year plans to a faster move, we're finding our rhythm, we're finding the groove. Don't you worry, no, don't you fret. Bayer's got a plan, we'll not give it up yet. We're breaking free, busting bureaucracy. Step by step, we're finding our harmony. It's a time of change, oh yes indeed. Empowering people, giving them the lead. No more talking just to talk, we want action. Product ownership, satisfaction. Find your island of happiness, make it your space. No more aligning, let's pick up the pace. We're all in this together, got a shared goal. bringing health for all, that's the soul. Don't you worry, no, don't you fret. Buyer's got a plan, we're not giving up yet. We're breaking free, busting bureaucracy. Step by step, we're finding our harmony. So let the sun shine in, feel the warmth grow. We're changing the game, just letting you know. From a tea to the fields, we're set to fly. No worries, no fears, we're reaching for the sky. Don't you worry, no, don't you fret. Buyer's got a plan, we're not giving up yet. We're breaking free, busting bureaucracy. Step by step, we're finding our harmony.